Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And this morning, this evening, I am having a conversation with Louis Swart from Sydney, Australia. Good evening, Louis.
Good evening. Lovely to be here. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. We had a good chat last week, didn't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was good. It's always nice to have a chat, whatever the subject.
This
But
is
yeah,
true.
yeah. So, the question that I ask all my guests is what do you enjoy doing when you're not working?
I actually love photography, and I love street art. So I love to go and just take photos of street art, like really nice photos of street art. Um, yeah, it's I don't know. There's something about street art. You go there and somebody's done a whole artwork, and then you take a couple of photos, and then maybe they come and paint over it the next day. Nobody will ever see it again.
Yeah,
Um, So I love that.
that's
I love doing that.
there's on one of the soap operas that now is no longer in Australia. They have, I believe in this, and I'm pretty sure it was Melbourne. In the city, they do a street art tour,
Yeah,
and they showed it on one of the episodes, going through all the
yes,
streets with all the different street art. It was incredible.
it's incredible. If you get off the train, you can get off the train and then there's tour guides and you just go there and they give you a map and it shows you where all the street art is.
Yeah, it's they're kind of the artists. They're sort of they're hiding themselves in the shadows, aren't they? Really, because you don't very
Mm.
often see them do it. They just these art pieces just appear, and it's
Very
like they're
true.
hiding in the shadows.
Very true. Very lots of times where they're putting the art, they're not supposed to be. So
Well,
that makes
there is that. Yeah. But yes. So, is there anybody particular that you enjoy following? That presumably they've got sort of signatures or they've got a theme, or you can recognize it by how they place their art on the places they place it. Is there anybody particular that you enjoy looking for?
there's a guy called Caffeine, spelt with a K, and he does like deer, but in human outfits. He does like a man's body, but it's got a deer antlers.
Yes.
And it's very distinct art that he does. Um, and then obviously there's, Banksy, which is like incredible, but
Yeah.
it's sort of so popular that it's almost like kind of run of the mill. Like if you ask anybody, they go, "Oh, Banksy."
Banksy.
Um,
Yeah.
The amazing part is that you can actually drive around and you can see somebody's tag, and then you can see that name in other places or even other towns. So,
Mm.
yeah, incredible stuff. So,
Yes, and of course there's the tour in Melbourne. Do any other cities do tours of the street art?
I'm not 100% sure, but they all have street art. Even little towns have street art, you know.
Mm.
Um, Sometimes you've got to go down the street, like we've got a suburb called Newtown in Sydney, and
Hmm.
that's full of street art. And then in the city, there's a lot of street art, but Newtown is kind of known. It's like the hipster sort of area, and it's
Place to
known
go.
because yeah, yeah. So
And
that's
do
one thing I love.
any old buildings that are really sort of a bit downtrodden have street art or something that they somebody has been commissioned to do to brighten the building up?
Yes, there's quite a lot of that. There's quite a lot of that where they'll take the whole side of a building, and they'll just um do street art. Um, and some of them are the one looks like you're looking through, the bathroom window. You know how they used to have the window with the indents? So it's a
Yes.
whole side of a building and it's a person's face, but it's done with that indent,
Oh,
sort of like you're looking at it through a bathroom window, through like not a frosted window. You know, there used to be that one that had like
yes. Yeah.
indents. It looks like that. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's really clever, isn't it? How they, because they're using mostly the spray cans,
Mm,
so it's really precise work, isn't it, that they're doing, and to get the effects that they do is really
mm,
quite mind blowing. I mean, that's a
absolutely.
talent in itself using the spray can. I mean,
Yeah,
I,
they use spray cans, but they also use ones that have got special nozzles. So they use special nozzles. And they use paper, they might hold a sheet of cardboard and then spray.
yeah.
So they'll get a nice straight line and then a spray, which
Mm,
it's techniques. It's very like a whole lot of it's technique. So,
mm, yes.
oh, excuse
Very.
me.
That's right. That's you. We have a building on what's called so the town that I live in, we have a river that runs through the town, and there's a path that runs alongside a footpath and a cycle path. And we have a building that is beside a weir, only a
Okay.
small weir, and it's
Yeah.
it's the building that operates, and how all the workings of the weir and how it's the flow goes and everything. And there was a street artist commissioned to spray something up there for these fallen soldiers.
Okay.
And so we have a soldier in the poppy fields and a saying along the bottom, and there are four sides, so there are different soldiers on this buildings, and then there's smaller
Wow.
pictures on so they're only very small buildings,
Mm.
but it really has an impact, and some school children were invited to be involved.
Okay.
And about a year or so ago, there had some graffiti appeared on it, so they
No.
they had to redo it. But because the children were involved with it, it hasn't really been touched because
Yeah.
they don't want. I don't know. There's just something psychological. Kids have been
Yeah.
involved to do it. Oh, we don't really want to graffiti it, but somebody did. But it wasn't too bad, and it was all, you wouldn't know where it was. But yes, it's really, it makes you stop and think.
Hmm. They're normally pretty good. They normally, if somebody graffiti something, they don't graffiti over it as a general rule.
No, no,
Um,
which is right, isn't it? It shouldn't happen. Apart
yeah.
from the fact that the illegal street artists do it illegally. Apart from that, yeah. No, I think that great talent, and of course some have gone into the art world, haven't they, and done great big pieces, and being
Yeah.
able to be taken on by people and promoted and do
Hmm.
tours and so on with their work. I think that's brilliant, and of course every artist in their right mind would want that to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it must be quite a thrill if you're doing it somewhere where you're not supposed to be, I suppose. I mean,
Yes,
because they literally like that's why Banksy was so good because Banksy could he literally wanted to do artworks, but he knew that he only had a couple of like he had a minute or two to be there. And
yes.
that's why his stuff is all stenciled. So he would do a stencil. He put a stencil up against the wall, spray it, spray some red, and then he'd walk away and you'd have the little girl standing there with a balloon.
Mm.
Um, but it was all stenciled, and that's why you can see it's like exactly the same wherever they do it, because that's his style. Whereas
Do
some
you
of
have
them
pieces?
actually do it from
Do you
scratch.
have pieces of Banksy over there?
Yeah, definitely. We actually have the
Right.
Banksy exhibition, and Banksy's quite big over here.
Oh,
Um,
right.
yeah, and even
Yes.
like people copy the Banksy. People copy the
Yeah.
Banksy stuff. So you might go through Newtown, and there's a little girl with a red balloon, or
Mm.
some of his more famous pieces.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I went to the Banksy exhibition, I think like last year. And it was lovely. It was lovely, the stuff that he's got. Very
Mm.
British.
Yes. Yes. And he appears in all sorts of places over here.
Mm.
There was one place he went on. It was thought that he went on holiday up to East Anglia, to Norfolk and Suffolk, because
Yeah.
pieces were appearing in the most obscure places. One was a broken down bridge, and nobody very rarely walked by the bridge. It was
Yeah.
literally a river or a small stream going underneath a bridge, a broken down bridge, and there was the artwork on this bridge.
Wow.
And you would rarely walk down by the river. But
Hmm.
as soon as somebody discovered it, my goodness me, visitors, yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, all sorts of places, and there was one on a beach, on a bit of concrete going down, and then you have the breakwater.
Yeah.
There was a small piece, just I forget what they were, but it was very small, just going down. You blink and you miss it really.
Hmm. Hmm.
But he's very, very clever, very clever. And over here, some buildings, the end wall of a building would be taken down to make sure that it's preserved.
Yeah.
It's really, and of course the pieces are worth an absolute fortune of the
Yeah.
originals.
Yeah. Yeah. Ah,
So,
look, I think it might be a little bit like Shakespeare. They said Shakespeare couldn't have written all the stuff that he wrote. There was like just so much Shakespearean stuff. Look, they sort of go, well, lots of people maybe went under the name of Shakespeare, so you just don't know. I mean, I
it's
suppose if
true.
you're that, how do you show that how do you know that it was Banksy that did it? It looks like, it's a Banksy-esque, like
He
street art.
must he must have a team. It can't just be one person, can it?
Well,
That's the
there's
mystique about it, isn't it? Is it one person? Is it two or three? I mean,
Well, I mean, you could do a Banksy. You could look at all his artworks and then do an artwork that kind of was in line with those artworks and go and spread that all over town, and people would be like, "Oh, Banksy was here," but it was actually just you pretending to be Banksy.
yeah,
So,
yes. There's a great big question mark over it, isn't there?
mm, mm,
Really. But yes, I think that I think it's brilliant, and hats off to those that are able to get into or end up with an agent, and the ultimate, and they do a tour with their art. I mean, yes,
yeah,
I love
absolutely.
the bold colours of some of them. They really stand out, don't they? They
Yeah,
sort of kind of hit you. The one that
mm,
I recall seeing, I don't know where it is, but it was on the internet, and it was the end of a building, a really dreary building. It looked just as if the building was going to fall down. It was just tired, and
yeah.
the artist created the upper levels of a like a Swiss Austrian town with all the balconies and
Oh wow,
people
okay.
out, and incredible. You never think that it was just a flat bit of brickwork, because
Yeah,
the way the artist did it, it was sort of 3D, and you had all the people on balconies, and the different levels, the different rooftops. It was
yeah.
really quite incredible. So, there's
Wow.
just the vision that they have is really quite something.
Yeah.
And but it wouldn't be quite the same if everybody had that vision, because it wouldn't then be unique.
This is true. Very true.
But yes, what an insight. I would have never expected of you to say that you enjoyed that. So it always, is good to ask the question.
This is true. This is true. Uh, yeah, I like that as a question when when you meet somebody new and you sort of say, I normally say, what do you do for fun, or what is there in your life that brings you the most joy is another good one,
Yes,
because you get such random answers.
yes.
I once had a
Well, this
big
is the
burly guy say to me
yeah.
pottery, and I was just like, that was the last
Oh,
thing. I would never ever have imagined that. You know.
Yeah. But it is I've on my chit chats I've rarely had any doubles. This is the first street art.
Really? Okay. I love it.
Out of I've done this would be my 83rd.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, so I think yes, 80 yes, so that's since April, beginning of April last year.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
So my first street art. So there we go.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm very grateful to be your first. So,
good. I think there's room for several more conversations between us, don't you? I mean, photography. I love photography. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. But
It
that,
is a wonderful art form. Hey, I think photography, being able to capture the light and the
yes,
framing correctly, it's just, it's
and so many different genres,
yeah, yeah.
not just
So,
one. It's and what you can do with a photograph too, if you really want to use your imagination, you can, there's all sorts of manipulation, isn't there? I mean, I don't particularly enjoy manipulating photographs because it's a moment in time.
yeah,
So, but there are others like street art that they have that image, and then they want to manipulate it into something, make it into have that just as a foundation, sort of sitting in the background, and work out from there.
yeah, yeah.
So it's
The
it's
I remember doing taking photos and then processing them in black and white, and then actually getting watercolors and then painting watercolors onto it for the color. And you'd have a black and white
ah
photo, and you'd have a red dress, for
yeah,
example, and we're just like, oh, it just looked
wow,
incredible.
yes,
Um,
because
so
you've got the hard lines of the black and white, and then
mm,
the color, however colorful,
yeah,
it would pop out, wouldn't it?
yeah,
Because of
yeah.
your structure.
And you've got that watercolor sort of effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was,
Well,
and it's a
yeah,
lot
we
of fun. It was a lot of fun
watch
to do.
watch this space, eh?
Now we just do it on Photoshop and we like color change, pop the dress, you know.
Oh dear. Well, yes. Time has beaten us. So I'd like to thank you so much for joining me today, and let there be another conversation down the road sometime, I hope.
Well, this is amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time spending some time with you. Love the chit chat. Can't say I've told too many people about my street art, and photography
Oh,
things in podcasts. So thank you very much.
well, I hope you don't mind that a few more people are going to find out.
I love it. I love it.
Good, good. Absolutely. That's brilliant. So we'll get this sorted and get it out onto socials.
Thank you very much.